Commander Lyra Voss stood at the observation deck of Outpost Zenith, her eyes fixed on the stars. The outpost hung at the edge of Zephyrian space, closest to what humans called the Milky Way. For 300 years, she had commanded this post. 300 years was nothing to a Zephyrian. Their kind measured life in millennia, not decades. "Commander, we've detected an unknown vessel approaching our sector," said Officer Nex, her second in command. Lyra didn't turn away from the viewport. Origin. The Milky Way. Preliminary scans suggest humans. Now Lyra turned, her silver eyes narrowing. Humans? This far from their home system. Impossible. But the evidence was there on the display screen. A ship, crude by Zephyrian standards, but impressive for such a young species. The data scrolled across her screen. The vessel carried 5,000 humans in cryosleep, with only a skeleton crew awake to pilot it. "Send a message to the High Council," Lyra ordered. "We have first contact with the mayflies." Mayflies? That's what Zephyrians called short-lived species. Humans, with their pitiful 80-year lifespans, were among the shortest-lived intelligent species the Zephyrians had ever encountered. The response from the High Council came faster than expected. Councillor Darius Sell's face appeared on the main screen, his ancient eyes cold with concern. "Commander Voss, you will establish a quarantine zone immediately. No contact with the human vessel. No communications. No exceptions." Lyra frowned. "Counselor, with respect, these humans have achieved interstellar travel. Their technology is primitive and unrefined." Darius cut her off. "But that is not why we quarantine them. Short-lived species bring chaos, Commander. They rush. They take risks. They change things that should remain stable. Our society has thrived for 50,000 years because we understand the value of patience and order." Lyra knew better than to argue. The Council had ruled the Zephyrian Empire since before she was born. Their word was law. On the human vessel Horizon Dawn, Captain John Miller received the first readings of the massive Zephyrian outpost. "My God," he whispered, "we're not alone out here." Beside him, Chief Science Officer Alan Hayes studied the readings with wide eyes. "Captain, the energy output from that station, it's incredible. And look at these life signs. There must be thousands of them on that outpost alone." John nodded slowly. "Wake Olivia from cryosleep. If we're meeting aliens, we need our best diplomat." 3 hours later, Olivia Cruz joined them on the bridge, still shaking off the effects of long-term cryosleep. "What do we know about them?" she asked. Alan brought up the scans on the main display. "They're humanoid, but their biology is strange. Their cellular structure shows signs of extensive regeneration and modification. If I'm reading this correctly, they could live for thousands of years." "Immortals," Olivia whispered. "Not quite," Alan said, frowning at his readings. "But something's not right. These readings suggest—" He paused, running the scan again. "Captain, I need to check something in the lab. These biological readings don't make sense." While the humans studied them, the Zephyrians watched the approaching ship with growing concern. In her private quarters, Lyra received another transmission, this one encrypted for her eyes only. It was from Councillor Darius again, but his tone had changed. "Commander, the Council has voted. If the humans attempt to approach the outpost or any Zephyrian world, you are authorized to use deadly force. These mayflies must not be allowed to disrupt our way of life." Lyra stared at the message for a long time. In 300 years of service, she had never fired on another vessel. In his lab aboard the Horizon Dawn, Alan Hayes looked up from his microscope, his face pale. "This can't be right," he muttered, but the evidence was clear. The Zephyrians' immortality was failing, and none of them had noticed. Their millennia of life were about to come to an end. Captain John Miller made his decision. Despite the lack of response to their signals, he ordered a small shuttle prepared for first contact. The massive alien station loomed ahead, beautiful and foreign. "Captain, this is risky," Olivia Cruz said, checking her translator device. They haven't answered any of our messages. They've scanned us multiple times, John replied. They know we're here. Sometimes you need to knock on the door in person. Alan Hayes joined them in the shuttle bay, carrying a tablet filled with his findings. I need to be on this mission, Captain. What I've discovered about their biology, it's important. John looked at his science officer closely. Important how? Their cells show signs of repeated regeneration, thousands of cycles, but there's degradation in their genetic structure, like making a copy of a copy over and over. Eventually, the image breaks down. What are you saying? Olivia asked. Alan's face was grim. Their immortality treatments are failing. I don't think they even know it yet. The shuttle launched, small against the vastness of space, heading toward the Zephyrian outpost. On the outpost, Lyra Voss watched the approaching shuttle with growing alarm. They're ignoring our warning signals, Officer Nex reported. Weapons are locked and ready. Lyra hesitated. Despite the Council's orders, destroying the shuttle felt wrong. These humans had traveled across the stars only to be destroyed without a word. Hold fire, she ordered. Bring them in through Docking Bay 7. Minimal contact only. Nex looked shocked. Commander, the Council's orders. I'll take full responsibility. Alert me when they dock. The human shuttle landed in the vast, empty docking bay. John, Olivia, and Alan stepped out, their faces filled with wonder at the huge space, built for ships many times their shuttle's size. 4 Zephyrians approached them, tall, with silver-toned skin and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. The leader stepped forward. I am Commander Lyra Voss. You have entered Zephyrian space uninvited. State your purpose, and then you must leave. Olivia stepped forward. I am Diplomat Olivia Cruz of Earth. We come in peace, seeking dialogue and possibly trade. Our home system is depleted, and we search for a new beginning. Lyra's expression remained cold. Zephyrians do not trade with mayfly species. Your presence here is against our Council's wishes. Helen studied the Zephyrians with intense focus. Their cellular degradation was visible even to his naked eye. Fine silver lines across their skin that told of countless regeneration cycles. Your people are dying, he said suddenly, stepping forward. The Zephyrian stiffened. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You know nothing of our people. Alan held up his tablet, displaying complex genetic sequences. Your immortality treatments are causing cascade failures in your genetic code. Look at these patterns. They show degradation that will accelerate with each new treatment. Silence, Lyra ordered, but Alan could see a flicker of doubt in her ancient eyes. 3 more generations of treatments, and your entire species faces extinction. Alan continued. We can help you. Before Lyra could respond, alarms sounded throughout the station. A new voice came over the communication system. Commander Voss, this is Enforcer Theron Mal. By order of the High Council, I am assuming command of Outpost Zenith. The humans are to be detained immediately. Lyra's face paled. You must leave now, she told the humans urgently. Return to your ship. But we can help your people, Alan insisted. Go. Lyra pushed them back toward their shuttle. If what you say is true, I will find a way to contact you. But not now. As the humans reluctantly boarded their shuttle, Lyra handed Olivia a small data crystal. If you speak true about helping us, study this. It contains our genetic history. The shuttle launched just as armed Zephyrians entered the docking bay. Enforcer Theron Mal approached Lyra, his expression cold. Commander Voss, you have disobeyed direct orders from the High Council. You are relieved of duty and confined to quarters until further notice. As Lyra was led away, she watched the human shuttle return to their ship. For the first time in centuries, she felt something new. Fear for her species' future, and hope that these short-lived humans might hold the answer. Back on the horizon dawn, Alan worked through the night. The data crystal Lyra had given them contained centuries of Zephyrian medical history. With each passing hour, his face grew more grave. "It's worse than I thought," he told John and Olivia as they gathered in the ship's lab. Their immortality treatments began 5,000 years ago. Each treatment rebuilds their cells, but introduces tiny errors in their genetic code. Olivia frowned. "Like making a photocopy of a photocopy?" "Exactly," Alan nodded. "The first few hundred copies look fine, but eventually the flaws become visible. The Zephyrians are reaching that critical point now." John paced the small lab. "Can we help them? Would they even accept our help?" "I think we can," Alan said. "Their regeneration process is amazing, but they've been using the same method for millennia. They stopped innovating. Our stem cell research from the past decade might be the key." "But their council has ordered them not to speak with us," Olivia reminded them. John stopped pacing. "Then we need to speak with someone who will listen." In her quarters on Outpost Zenith, Lyra reviewed Alan's findings on her private terminal. The human was right. The data showed clear signs of degradation in the Zephyrian genetic code. How had they missed this? Perhaps because Zephyrians rarely died, they had stopped studying their own mortality. A soft chime indicated someone at her door. When it slid open, Ilara Nix, the outpost's chief medical officer, stood there. "You've been confined to quarters," Ilara said, eyes darting to the guards down the hall. "I shouldn't be here. Yet here you are," Lyra said. Ilara stepped inside, letting the door close. "Is it true what the humans said about our genetic degradation?" Lyra showed her the data. Ilara's ancient eyes widened with horror as she understood. "The council must be told," she whispered. "Enforcer Theron answers only to Counselor Darius. They will silence this discovery rather than admit our immortality is failing." Ilara's hands trembled. "What can we do?" "The humans believe they can help. Their species lives shorter lives, but they innovate quickly." Lyra looked at her old friend. "I need to contact them again." On the Horizon Dawn, supplies were running low. The ship was designed for a journey to a habitable planet, not an extended stay in deep space. "We need to either make contact with the Zephyrians again or move on," said Susan Bell, the ship's doctor. "Our food reserves won't last another month." John nodded grimly. "If we leave, we condemn their species. If we stay, we risk our own." The ship's communication system suddenly crackled to life. "Horizon Dawn, this is Ilara Nix, Zephyrian Medical Officer. I am transmitting on a secure channel. Please respond." John exchanged shocked looks with his officers before responding. "This is Captain John Miller. We receive you. Captain, we need your help, and I believe we can help you too. I've studied your scientist's findings. He's correct about our genetic degradation. We're still working on a solution," John said. "I need to meet with your medical team," Ilara replied. "Enforcer Theron monitors all official communications. I can arrange a secret meeting on the outpost's lower level." "This could be a trap," Olivia warned quietly. John considered this, then made his decision. "Dr. Bell, gather your team. Alan, prepare your research. We're going back." That night, a small shuttle quietly detached from the Horizon Dawn. Inside were Alan, Susan, and 2 security officers. They approached the outpost from its dark side, away from the main sensors. Meanwhile, Enforcer Theron entered Lyra's quarters unannounced. His cold eyes surveyed her room. "Commander Voss, the human vessel remains in our space despite my warnings. Do you know why they would stay when facing destruction?" Lyra kept her face neutral. "Perhaps they have nowhere else to go." Theron stepped closer. "Or perhaps someone has given them reason to stay." As he spoke, alarms blared throughout the station. Theron's communication device lit up. "Enforcer, we've detected an unauthorized shuttle approaching the maintenance docks." Theron's eyes narrowed as he looked at Lyra. "What have you done?" The human shuttle slipped into the maintenance dock as alarms blared throughout the station. Alan, Susan, and the security officers ducked behind cargo containers as Zephyrian guards rushed past. "This way," came a whisper. Ilara Nix stood in a doorway, beckoning urgently, quickly before the security sensors reset. They followed her through a maze of service corridors until they reached a small, hidden laboratory. "This is my private research space," Ilara explained. "No one knows about it, not even Commander Voss." "Why help us?" Susan asked, setting down her medical kit. "Your people seem determined to avoid contact with humans." Ilara's ancient eyes looked tired. "I've studied medicine for 800 years. I've noticed small changes in our regeneration treatments, signs that something was wrong. But no one would listen. The Council believes our methods are perfect because they've worked for millennia." Alan unpacked his equipment. "Your civilization stopped looking for problems, so you stopped finding them." Ilara nodded sadly. "Short life breeds curiosity. Long life breeds certainty, and too much certainty can be dangerous." In the command center, Enforcer Theron interrogated Lyra. "Where would the humans go?" he demanded. "Security sensors detected their shuttle, but now it's vanished." "Perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning," Lyra suggested calmly. "After all, they are several centuries old." Theron slammed his fist on the console. "I've received new orders from Counselor Darius. The human vessel is to be destroyed. We cannot risk their contamination spreading to other Zephyrian worlds." Lyra's calm facade cracked. "Destroyed? They've done nothing to threaten us." "Their very existence threatens us," Theron replied coldly. "Their short lives make them reckless, impulsive. Look how quickly they approached our station despite warnings. Imagine such behavior spreading among our youth." Lyra needed to warn the humans, but first she needed to escape. As Theron turned to give orders to his guards, she quietly activated her emergency override code on the nearest console. The station lights flickered, then dimmed as emergency protocols engaged. "What is happening?" Theron demanded. "Power surge in Sector 7, a technician reported. Environmental systems are cycling to emergency backups." In the confusion, Lyra slipped away. Meanwhile, in Ilara's secret lab, Alan and Susan made a breakthrough. "Look at this," Susan said excitedly, pointing to her microscope. "When we introduce modified human stem cells to the Zephyrian tissue sample, the degradation stops completely." Alan checked her findings. "Better than stops. It begins to reverse. The damaged genetic sequences are actually repairing themselves." Ilara studied the results with wide eyes. "This is remarkable. But there must be a catch." Alan nodded grimly. "There is. Based on our models, it would reduce your lifespans significantly. You'd still live for centuries rather than decades like humans, but not millennia like you're used to. Many Zephyrians would rather die than accept shorter lives," Ilara said softly. The door to the lab suddenly opened. Everyone froze, but it was Lyra who entered, breathing hard. "They found your ship," she told the humans urgently. "Theron has orders to destroy it. You need to warn them." Alan tried to contact the Horizon Dawn, but something was blocking their communications. "Theron must be jamming signals," Lyra said. "Our people are in danger," Susan said, gathering her research. "We need to get back to our shuttle." "No," Lyra shook her head. "They're watching for it now. There's another way. We have small scout ships in the auxiliary bay. I can get you to one." "What about you?" Ilara asked. "If you help them escape, you'll be charged with treason." Lyra's face hardened with resolve. "Our entire species is at risk of extinction. Sometimes rules must be broken to save lives." As they prepared to move, the station rocked with a sudden impact. Alarms changed tone, becoming more urgent. "What was that?" Alan asked. Lyra's face paled. "The attack on your ship has begun." The Horizon Dawn fired its engines at full power, barely avoiding the first volley from the Zephyrian defense systems. Captain John Miller gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Get us out of their weapons range." "Captain," his communications officer called out, We're receiving a transmission from inside the station. It's Dr. Bell. John's eyes widened. Put her through. Susan's voice came through, broken with static. John, Zephyrians. Attacking. We found. Treatment works. Need extraction. We can't get near the station while they're firing on us, John replied. Where are you exactly? Auxiliary, Bay 3. Lyra helping. The connection cut out as another blast rocked the ship. Olivia stepped forward. Captain, I have an idea. The colonists in cryosleep. Their pods have individual emergency beacons for recovery operations. If we launch a dozen empty pods toward the station, John immediately understood. They'll read as multiple targets. A distraction. He nodded approvingly. Do it. And prepare a rescue shuttle. I'm going in myself. Inside the station, Lyra led the humans through maintenance tunnels toward the auxiliary bay. Alarms blared all around them. Enforcer Theron will have guards at all the main entrances, she warned. Alan clutched the data tablet containing their research. We can't lose this. It's the key to saving both our peoples. As they reached a junction, they heard footsteps approaching. They pressed themselves against the wall as a patrol of guards passed by. This way, Lyra whispered after the guards had gone. There's a service entrance to the bay. Just as they reached the door, Ilara stumbled, clutching her chest. What's wrong? Susan asked, helping her stand. Nothing, Ilara insisted. Just tired. But Susan recognized the signs. It's not nothing. Your cells are degrading, aren't they? The process has already started in you. Ilara nodded reluctantly. I was one of the first to notice the changes. That's why I began researching in secret. But we don't have time for this now. They entered the auxiliary bay to find it mostly empty. A few small scout ships sat waiting. I can pilot one of these, Lyra said, moving toward the nearest ship. Suddenly, the large bay doors began to open. Through the widening gap, they could see the horizon dawn in the distance, surrounded by what looked like debris. Your ship, Ilara said. It's been destroyed. No, Alan said, pointing. Look closer. Those are empty cryopods. They're creating a distraction. Through the cloud of pods, a small shuttle emerged, heading directly for the open bay. Lyra smiled. Your captain is clever. Their relief was short-lived. The bay doors suddenly began to close again. Someone's overriding the controls, Lyra said, rushing to a nearby console. Her fingers flew over the controls, but without success. It's locked out. Theron must know we're here. The shuttle was still too far away. It wouldn't make it before the doors close. Ellen looked around desperately, then spotted a manual override lever for the bay doors. There, he shouted, running toward it. Before he could reach it, a bolt of energy struck the floor in front of him. Enforcer Theron stood at the bay entrance with several guards. Traitors and aliens, he said coldly. You will not leave this station alive. Lyra stepped forward, positioning herself between Theron and the humans. The treatment works, Theron. These humans can save our people. At what cost? Theron demanded. Shorter lives. Dependency on another species. The Council would rather our kind die with dignity than live as something less. Outside, the shuttle piloted by John Miller raced toward the narrowing bay doors. We're not going to make it, his co-pilot warned. John set his jaw. Yes, we are. He pushed the engines beyond their safety limits. Inside the bay, Theron raised his weapon. Step aside, Commander Voss. My quarrel is not with you. If you threaten them, your quarrel is with me, Lyra replied, standing firm. Behind them, Ilara suddenly collapsed to the floor, her body convulsing. Ilara. Susan rushed to her side. It's accelerating. The genetic breakdown is happening faster than we predicted. Theron's attention shifted to Ilara's collapsed form. For a brief moment, uncertainty crossed his ancient face. What's happening to her? He demanded. The genetic breakdown we warned you about, Alan said, moving closer. It's not a theory. It's happening now, and it's accelerating. Susan worked frantically to stabilize Ilara. Her cells are breaking down faster than I've ever seen. This could happen to all Zephyrians, at any time. Theron lowered his weapon slightly. You're lying. Our treatments have worked for thousands of years, and now they're failing, Lyra insisted. Look at her, Theron. This is what awaits all of us unless we accept help. Outside, John's shuttle hit maximum speed, racing toward the nearly closed bay doors. The gap was now barely wider than the shuttle itself. Brace for impact, John shouted. The shuttle scraped through the narrowing gap with a horrible screech of tearing metal. Sparks flew as the sides of the shuttle were sheared away. It crash-landed on the bay floor, skidding toward the group. Everyone scattered as the shuttle came to a grinding halt. The door blew open, and John emerged with a small security team, weapons ready. Hold your fire, Lyra shouted as both sides aimed weapons at each other. In the tense standoff, Susan called out from Ilara's side. I need to get her to proper medical facilities. She's dying. Theron looked torn, centuries of obedience to the Council battling with the evidence before his eyes. The Council ordered no contact, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The Council doesn't know what we now know, Lyra replied. If we do nothing, our entire species faces extinction. Ellen stepped forward, hands raised. Your people won't need to rely on us forever. We can teach you the science. In time, you can improve it yourselves. John lowered his weapon first. We came to your stars looking for a new home. Instead, we found a people who need our help. Let us give it. Ilara's body convulsed again, and Susan looked up desperately. She has minutes, not hours. Theron finally made his decision. He lowered his weapon completely and motioned to his guards to do the same. Take her to the medical center, he ordered, and bring the humans, all of them. As they rushed Ilara through the station corridors, news of the crisis spread. Young Zephyrians gathered, watching with concern as one of their eldest was carried past, dying from a condition they had never seen before. In the medical center, Susan and Alan worked alongside Zephyrian doctors to prepare the treatment. They had only tested it on cell samples, never on a living Zephyrian. This could kill her faster, Susan warned as she prepared the injection. She'll die without it, Lyra said. She would want us to try. As the treatment was administered, Theron received an urgent communication. He turned to Lyra, his face grim. Counselor Darius is on his way. He's bringing the Imperial Guard. How long do we have? John asked. Hours at most. Once he arrives, he will take control. The human ship will be destroyed, and all of you will be executed as examples. Aelin looked up from monitoring Ilara. Then we need to share this treatment with as many Zephyrians as possible before he arrives. Once they understand what's at stake, they can stand with us. Treason against the Council. Theron shook his head. It hasn't happened in thousands of years. Perhaps it's time, Lyra said firmly. Our civilization has stagnated because we fear change. These humans show us another way. On the medical bed, Ilara's convulsions suddenly stopped. For a terrible moment, everyone thought she had died. Then her eyes opened, clearer than before. It worked, she whispered, looking at her hands where the silver degradation lines were already fading. I can feel the difference. Theron stared in amazement. Then he straightened, decision made. I will secure the communications center. We need to broadcast this to all Zephyrians before Darius arrives. You're committing treason, Lyra warned. Theron nodded solemnly. I'm choosing survival over blind obedience. Perhaps that's what these humans can truly teach us. The news spread across the station like wildfire. Zephyrians gathered around communication screens as Ilara explained the genetic breakdown and the human treatment that had saved her life. Many young Zephyrians immediately came forward, volunteering to receive the treatment. The council chambers are calling, a communication officer reported. Counselor Darius demands to speak with whoever is in charge. Lyra, Theron, and John exchanged glances. Then Lyra stepped forward. Put him through. Counselor Darius appeared on the main screen, his ancient face twisted with anger. Commander Voss, what is the meaning of this broadcast? You have violated direct council orders. Counselor, the genetic breakdown is real, Lyra replied calmly. The humans have developed a treatment. Ilara has already been cured. Cured? Darius scoffed. At what cost? Our reports indicate the treatment reduces our lifespans. You would have us become like these mayflies. Alan stepped into view. Your people would still live for centuries, Counselor. The difference is you would live healthy, stable lives instead of facing complete extinction. Darius ignored him. I am 10 minutes from docking. The Imperial Guard will restore order. This rebellion ends today. The screen went dark. Theron turned to the others. He won't listen. The Imperial Guard answers only to the Council. We need to evacuate everyone who has accepted the truth. To where? Lyra asked. The Horizon Dawn can't hold all of us. John considered this problem. Not everyone would need to leave. If enough Zephyrians understand what's happening, Darius can't silence you all. What are you suggesting? Theron asked. A stand, John said simply. Show Darius and the Imperial Guard how many of you choose a shorter, free life over a longer one in denial. The plan came together quickly. When Counselor Darius's ship docked, he found the main corridor lined with hundreds of Zephyrians, all standing together with the humans. At the front stood Lyra, Theron, Ilara, John, Alan, and Susan. Darius stepped off his ship, flanked by the Imperial Guard in their ceremonial armor. He surveyed the gathered crowd with cold eyes. This is how thousands of years of order ends, he asked. Because of lies spread by creatures who live less than a century. Ilara stepped forward. It's not a lie, Counselor. I was dying. The treatment saved me. She rolled up her sleeve, showing her arm now free of degradation lines. See for yourself. The treatment is available to everyone, Lyra added, including you, Counselor. Darius laughed bitterly. You would have me throw away millennia of life. For what? A few paltry centuries. For survival, Alan said. Not just of individuals, but your entire species. And what would we become? Darius demanded. A lesser version of ourselves, dependent on these humans. John shook his head. Not dependent. Partners. Our species can learn from each other. Your wisdom and patience, our adaptability and innovation. Darius turned to the Imperial Guard. Arrest the humans and the traitors. This ends now. But the guards didn't move. Their captain looked at the hundreds of Zephyrians standing united, then back at Darius. I'm sorry, Counselor. I cannot give that order. Darius's face darkened with rage. Then I'll do it myself. He pulled out a weapon and aimed it at John. Before he could fire, Theron stepped in front of John. Enough, Counselor. Your time has passed. The weapon clattered to the floor as Darius's hand suddenly spanned. He clutched at his chest, his face contorted in pain. The genetic breakdown had found him too. As Darius collapsed, Susan rushed forward with the treatment. Let me help you, she urged. Darius looked up at her with ancient, tired eyes. Why would you save me? I tried to destroy you. Because that's what humans do, Susan said simply. We help each other survive. 1 year later, the Zephyrian-Human Alliance celebrated its founding. The Horizon Dawn colonists had been welcomed to settle on an uninhabited continent of the Zephyrian homeworld. In return, humans shared their medical knowledge and technological innovations. Lyra stood with John on a balcony overlooking the new colony. Our council looks to you for guidance on how to adapt to shorter lives, she said with a smile. And we look to you for wisdom on how to build things that last, John replied. Together, both our species will thrive far longer than either could alone. In the medical center below, Zephyrian and human doctors worked side by side, learning from each other. They had millennia to live, But now those years had purpose and direction. A single human had changed everything.